If I could help you break in a baseball glove, which is one of my biggest YouTube videos ever,
Right.
that's what I want to do. If I want to help you get over a heartbreak, that's what I want to do. If I want to talk about having a miscarriage, like me and my wife did after we had Penelope right in the middle, and how to deal with that as a man, that's what I want to talk about. If I want to talk about how to deal with hair loss, right? Mistakes that I made, things that I did that I shouldn't have done, that's what I want to talk about. So my biggest passion in everything is how can I use my life choice, Argon, to help the choices that I make, the wins, the losses, to help as many people as possible. Because I feel, other than spend the rest of my life with my wife and watch my kids grow up and help them, I could die today and be the happiest guy in the world because I've lived life.
What's your podcast?
The Coach HP Show.
I love it.
I appreciate you joining today. It's great to meet you finally. I know it's been a little long time coming. I'm excited to be here in Miami with you. This is my first live show, and I can't think of a better guest to be in Miami with. And welcome to R4E.
Dude, I love this, man. I love this setup here. Our man tried to. Audio is king, so I'm big on audio. I'm big on stuff. I'm excited to be guest number 15. You came from, what is it? You said
DC.
Washington D.C.
Yep.
And staying at the Four Seasons, which is beautiful. Have you stayed there before?
I have. I love that. My parents treat me there, and I love that property.
That place is nice, man. The pool, the view. I think that's, I don't know if you noticed, but that's the tallest high-rise building in southeastern United States.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I had no clue.
It's very nice, man. It's very nice.
Well, Coach, I know you're a Miami local now, and I'd love to jump into your story here momentarily. But as you know, all of my guests, I have them pick a walk-up song, and you're a baseball guy. I'm sure you have a handful in mind. But today, right now, what would be your walk-up song for R4E and why?
The first one that always comes up is God's Plan by Drake.
You are preaching to the choir here. I'm a huge Drake fan. I'm going to his concert at the end of the month. Why is God's Plan your walk-up song?
Because I feel that everything happens for a reason, and there's no mistakes. And if you look at the trajectory of everything that happens in life, it's very interesting that we're here right now. You're a guy that has a career, but you're doing this on the side. You got great support. You got Pops here recording, Pops here hanging out with. This is a tremendous vacation for you, I'm sure. It's a beautiful day. It's in the summer. The weather's awesome. So you can't home from DC sit down and go, okay, I want it this way and this way. Some things you can't control, right? But you're early, you're on time. We took care of everything. So I feel that there's God plan in everything you do. We talked earlier. I have incredible amount of failure in my past. That's what got me here. As I watch your previous episodes, right? To me, there's certain people that are born to do this, right? And I love your answer of why you like doing this and whether it's successful or not. I'm going to be 65 and I'll look back on it. Stuff like that you can't teach, man. You either have the right attitude or you're trying to catch a wave of something or pull numbers or catch an algorithm. And I think what you're doing is awesome, and I love it.
Well, I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to jump into your story. Like I said, we're in Miami, recording live here, and I know you are a legend here, but walk us through how you got to Miami. I know for a while you were living down here before you went out to LA, but maybe get the audience up to speed for those of you who don't know you. Give us a quick Coach HP in a nutshell, and then we can jump into your story.
Let's do it. So I'm from a little island called Cuba, which is 90 miles south from here. I was born in Cuba. Then from Cuba we went to Spain, to Madrid, because at the time Castro wasn't allowing people to come straight from Cuba. So you either came from, majority of people either came from, if unfortunately if you didn't come through raft, which that's the toughest one of all, you're either going through Spain. A lot of people came through Mexico, through Honduras, and I came to Spain. So I lived in Madrid for a little bit. Then I moved here to Miami. The self-proclaimed probably biggest failure in the history of Miami baseball by far. I wish I would have been lucky to have a dad like you that's cool, that you can talk to and stuff like that. Nobody prepared me more for life than my dad, except he prepared me for everything except to deal with him. So in that, I learned so much. My dad was the youngest of 15 kids. His dad died when he was 8 years old. Me and my dad have a lot of similarities in the work ethic and how we operate. We have a lot of differences in, I'm a people person. knowing that I didn't have a lot to bring to the table, I always said, listen, I'm going to learn instinctually to invest in others and really learn with people about their story, what makes them special, what do they like, what are they interested in, what's the relationship, you know. And my dad wasn't like that. My dad was more of this is what we're going to do, then we're going to get out, then we're going to go home. And I'm more of that. I'm more of enjoying the moment. I'm more of celebrating today that we're here now. And that led to a lot of clashes between us, identity issues with me. I've always wanted to be somebody else because when you're getting abused physically, and I was through a sport, it wasn't like through school or I was a delinquent or anything, but I wasn't successful in baseball, my dad would beat the shit out of me. So when you create that fear and that stuff and you're seeing that, man, there's nothing fun here, but I have incredible work ethic and I have this weird positivity about me that I don't know why, but the trauma that I got growing up, I used it to just become a positive guy for a weird reason. And I suffered identity issues. I always wanted to be somebody else. I never wanted to be myself. I always wanted to be somebody else. I was wetting the bed till at the age of 13, 14, which is crazy, and I didn't know why. But it was that, you know, it was this fear and that stuff, and everybody knew what was happening to me, including my mom. But they never stepped in, and nobody stopped it till I got to high school, and then I grew to be 6'2", and then things changed a little bit. But till then, I dealt with that. And I always knew, I go, man, I would sit at the dinner table with my parents, my sister, me, my mom and dad, and I'd be like, I don't belong with these people. We're not talking about the same things. I have visions of doing this. I have dreams. They're not even talking about that. They're very old school. It was almost like, hey, you go to school, get a degree, and that's it. So I'd always envisioned my life being different. And I failed incredibly in baseball. I tried to be somebody else. I tried to hit like Bryce Harper when I should have hit like guys like Christian Yelich. I was a contact guy, and I always wanted to swag. I wanted to be cool, and I was none of those things. So then, after failing in baseball, I played Division I. After 2 years of taking a break, I walked onto a team here in Miami. Then when I finished, I said, you know what? I'm going to act. And I saved up everything I could, and I grabbed the 2006 Toyota Corolla, and I took from here, I took the Turnpike North, then I took the I-10 all the way to Los Angeles, and I lived in a car for 6 months. I would shower and shave at the Equinox on Sunset Plaza, and I got a 1 month tanning supply at Sunset Tan, so I looked like $100, you know, like $1 million if you saw me, but nobody knew I was living in a car. And ironically, and this is the irony of this, I was with Wilhelmina, the modeling agency.
Okay.
Wilhelmina had a division there in Los Angeles, and when I signed on with them, they gave me a flyer of a guy named Gary Austin, and they're like, you got to take acting classes with this guy. And I was like, cool. And when I read it, it says when Helen Hunt won her Academy Award for As Good as It Gets, she thanked him. So, oh, this guy has to be good. So when I go to this guy's class after 6 months of being in my car, I realized that the minute I walked in there, this guy had created something called the Groundlings. You ever heard of the Groundlings?
Only from researching you ahead of this discussion, but I'd love to learn more.
So, you know what improvisational acting is?
Yeah, of course.
So improv, comedy, improv acting. Improv, the people that made it famous was Second City in Chicago. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Belushi, all those guys came out of that group. Then that guy left to San Francisco, and they formed the committee, which was like the West Coast version of that. Gary leaves that group, goes to Los Angeles, and forms the Groundlings. So he creates an example of the character of Pee Wee Herman. That's him. Lisa Kudrow, Will Ferrell, Phil Hartman, all that group of actors come out of the Groundlings. This guy creates the Groundlings. I'm sitting there, and as I'm sitting there, and he does his first talking thing, this is the first person I pretty much talked to in 6 months living in a car. He's wearing a retro Houston Astros baseball jacket. And he does a baseball analogy. So I go, this has to be a sign. And I raise my hand and I go, Professor, I'm absolutely right. I'm a baseball player. I used to play baseball, this, and that. And I moved in with his wife and his 4 snow dogs. And talk about 4 seasons. That was the dirtiest house I've ever seen in my life. But to me, it was a Four Seasons because I just finally had a place to sleep that wasn't a car. And I remember telling him at the beginning, Arjun, I go, because he immediately goes, dude, you got to stay in my house. I go, Professor, let's do this, dude. Let me stay in your driveway. Let me park in your driveway because at least I know I'll be safe. And don't worry about that because I need time because I've always been a guy that I don't want to take anything for granted. You know, like I don't want to feel like entitled or whatever. And I wanted to learn that moment, you know, enjoy that. So, dude, that's how that started. And I spent 6 years in Los Angeles and I became a celebrity baseball coach, working with celebrities and helping them with their kids and the mistakes that they're making. And a lot of the principles that I taught them was what my dad was, stuff that my dad taught me. So I did that for 6 years. And then after that, I moved to a little town called Las Vegas. And I became, in a 4-year run, the most popular guy there that didn't own a nightclub. Right? There wasn't a nightclub owner or a hospitality group owner. And that changed my whole life. I did that for 4 years. And the man upstairs, I felt, was talking to me, telling me that the legend's not going to die in a Las Vegas nightclub. I started off as a promoter, bringing girls to the club. And I ended up as vice president of customer development. And then, ironically, the president and CEO of MGM International, Jim Muir, pulled me out of the club. He put me in the casino world to be a casino executive. And I actually thought I was going to be a host. I'd be a president of a hotel in Cuba because he kind of told me, dude, you have all the skills in the world to do that. And he's a Maryland guy. And he pulled me out of there, and it was the worst decision I ever made in my life because the club was the best for me. In the corporate world, too many rules, no good for me. But the love of my life was my wife, I went to high school with, but I never spoke to her. We reconnected. I threw her best friend's bachelorette party. That changed my whole life. I came back to Miami, a place I never thought I'd come back to again. And I came back to here. It was 8 years ago. And then probably in 2020, I started the most positive show on the internet, the Coach HP Show. And the rest is history, man. Is that a good intro or what? What do you think I have?
Ready to go.
What do you think I have,
I'm
Pops?
fired up now.
Huh?
I'm fired up.
Come on.
So, Coach, you're the most positive guy on the internet. And that's how I came across your content. I know that's how many others have. That's where a lot of the intersection of our connections have found you. And I'm excited to share with my audience your story some more. And so I want to take a step back to your time in LA in the improv class. You saw the guy wearing the Houston Astros retro jersey. Great jerseys, by the way.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you thought it was a sign, an omen from the universe. Are you big into that sort of stuff, or was that just something you...
I'm big into everything. Everybody that I've looked up to, I've ran into. Everybody, here's a great story. So my whole life, especially when I had hair, I was compared to an actor by the name of Stephen Bauer. Stephen Bauer's Manolo in Scarface.
Right.
So, you've seen Scarface?
Honestly, I haven't.
I know, I failed as a dad.
What? Oh, no. This has changed this whole podcast, bro. Oh, my God. You know who's the star of Scarface? You know anything about Scarface?
I know the stills of the frames and the memes and stuff, but I've never actually seen the movie.
Okay, but you know who the star of Scarface is?
I know his face. I don't know. I can't think of his
Okay, good. Okay, let's talk about this. 'Cause you're in Miami.
Fire
You're
away.
interviewing a Cuban, and this is huge. Okay, so let's talk for a second. So, Oliver Stone. You know who Oliver Stone is?
I know Oliver Stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oliver Stone, not only being a tremendous director, but he's a tremendous writer also.
Okay.
So Oliver Stone writes this story, okay, about a Cuban immigrant that comes from Cuba to Miami to pursue the American dream. In the 80s, especially here in Miami with the Cocaine Cowboys, you heard of that?
Right, yeah.
With all that stuff. See, this is Netflix. This is the problem. This is Netflix society. That's what we gotta help them. So there was this huge influx of Latin American, Cubans, Colombians that came here to Miami, like the Miami Vice years and stuff, and just went crazy here. Like literally so much money and so much drugs, women, cars. Like this is what everybody aspired to. So if you were a Cuban that came here, you went two ways. Either you went the straight way, because the only good thing probably about the horrible communist system that Cuba had was that you would have education. Probably the only. So you either go to school because you were educated, or you became a drug dealer. Those were the two ways, unless you were an athlete or something like that, or a singer or an entertainer. So Oliver Stone writes this script to get over his cocaine addiction. Okay? The enormous amount of cocaine in this movie is insane. right? And it's probably the movie that has the word fuck used the most ever, okay? So he comes and he writes the script. When he writes the script, his favorite football player is, what am I going to name the main character? So his favorite football player is Joe Montana.
Okay.
So puts the last name Montana,
Tony
right?
Montana, yeah.
Which is you've never heard of a Cuban name Montana, right? That's how you say it. That's right, Montana, but it's Montana. And then he names him Antonio Montana. So Tony Montana is created the character, right?
Interesting.
That character is created, so he casts an Italian guy who had never played anything like that before, named Al Pacino. So Al Pacino comes and gets casted in this thing. I'm going to take up this whole time because you're going to love this, buddy. Your listeners are going to love this one.
I'm ready to go.
So he comes in, and they've casted Al Pacino already in this movie, okay? Marty Berkman is the producer of the movie. Marty Berkman, through the years, and remember, Al Pacino had already done Godfather. He was a huge star. Part 1, Part 2, huge star. Serpico, a million things. He became Al Pacino's manager. So Al Pacino and then boom, and the role of Manolo, which is his best friend, he wanted to cast an Irish guy who was his best friend in the movie, who they did a famous play called I think a tiger wears a necktie or something like that in Broadway. And there's no way you're gonna pull off a Cuban, like Irish looking guy to be his best friend. So my buddy, whose real name is Manolo Echevarria, okay, I'm sorry, Esteban Echevarria, changed it to Stephen Bauer. He did a show here in Miami called Que Pasa USA, which is a Spanglish show, which is super famous. Andy Garcia got his first break there. This is a hilarious show. It's a Spanglish show. Okay? This dude goes to the University of Miami. When he's in the University of Miami, he pulls a centerfold of Playboy, and it's Don Johnson and Melanie Griffin. He doesn't talk about if you know the universe or not. He doesn't know any of this, but he tells his dad, he goes, listen, when I grow up, I want a woman like Melanie Griffin. Okay, this is Stephen Bauer. Okay, so he says that, right? Fast forward, they're here. He had done a couple things. He had studied with Stella Adler. You know who Stella Adler is? Stella Adler became famous because she trained an actor in the what's called the method acting, named Marlon Brando. You know who that is? So after Marlon Brando, everybody wanted to act like Marlon Brando. All the actors imitated him. He was the guy, the way he looked, whatever. She formed a studio called the Actor Studio in New York that was like insane, following a Russian way of acting that you had to go to places like literally to show acting. So if I'm pumped now, I have to think of a time that I'm pumped so I can be pumped, right? That's the whole method. She saw Stephen Bauer and thought he was a second coming because he's like me, 6'2". He's a good-looking guy, tremendous actor, like a beast. So he comes, and a casting director goes, "I'm gonna put you for a role called Scarface Man." Okay, Stephen goes on his first casting thing. He gets casted for a movie in Los Angeles with 3 women. It's an army movie. There's 3 women, and he's like the love interest. The first one was Susan Sarandon. I forgot who the second one was, and the third one was Melanie Griffin.
Wow.
When Melanie Griffin saw him, the minute she saw him, because Melanie Griffin was like the Lindsay Lohan of our time, you know, very loose, very there. The minute she saw him, goes, "That's my guy." Hooked up with him, whatever. They formed a super long relation. Okay. This is Melanie Griffin in her prime, right? They're hooking up. They're having a great time, whatever. He wants to get cast in this movie called Scarface. So they go to New York, flies to New York. He meets the casting director. The casting director, she's literally vacuuming her living apartment in New York. He walks in, and she goes, "Oh my God, you're perfect. Are you Cuban?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm Cuban. This is perfect. You know Spanish? Yeah, I know Spanish. This is perfect. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna bring Marty in. We're gonna talk. This is perfect. 2 weeks pass, in comes Stephen Bauer. Marty Berkman comes in, he goes, "Oh my God, you're perfect. Do you know Spanish?" "Yeah, I'm Spanish." "You're Cuban?" "Oh, even this is perfect. This is awesome. You're going to be in this movie, whatever." He leaves. Probably 6 months pass, nothing with Scarface. He gets casted, Stephen gets casted to be the like Babe Ruth of the Navajo world, of the Indian world, like a Geronimo kind of guy, whatever. Serious part, big part for him. He keeps calling Marty Berkman. He goes, "Look, Marty, I'm gonna have to take this movie. It's been 6 months. You know, I haven't heard anything." He goes to him, "You know how many people are gonna watch your little Indian movie, bro?" very few. You know, if you're gonna watch a Scarface movie, the world. Okay. He goes, okay. I haven't met Al yet. I don't know what's going on. He goes, I gotta work on Al, because Al was like, if I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be my boy, my boy. And they already hired Brian De Palma to be the director. They already had Michelle Pfeiffer to be the lady, right? So Michelle Pfeiffer's in the movie too. So the first meeting between Al Pacino and Steven Bauer comes together. It's literally in the room, and this is like superstars, bro. It's literally, you're Al, I'm Steven Bauer, who had changed his name now to be more Americanized, whatever. Marty Berkman, Brian De Palma, and Oliver Stone.
Okay.
All three there, and they're here talking. And it's the scene where, you'll probably remember this, the scene where Omar, who's like there's a Frank guy who's the Miami boss. Omar is like his right hand man. That they do their first little job for Omar, where they're literally becoming from busboys to their first drug move. Okay, here in Miami, and they're making fun of Omar, whatever. And the minute they started talking, they clicked right away. Right then and there, I learned something very special that it shows how Pacino thinks. Pacino goes to them. Hold on one second. He grabbed Steven and they went back there and they talked about the process. He goes, don't let these people know what's going on. Let them see the magic. Me and you are going to talk shit about this Omar. This Omar's a piece of shit. He doesn't want to help us. He's jealous of us because we're this, we're that. And that's how they acted. And they did Scarface. So now, Al Pacino knew nothing about being Cuban.
Right.
So Al rented a house. Melanie lived in Malibu. Al rented a house in Malibu. And every morning, Steven will go to Al's house and would teach him about the Cuban situation, the embargo, what it's like to be a Cuban immigrant, what's it like to speak Cuban Spanglish, what is the accent like, whatever. So when you see Pacino say school in Spanish, we put, in the Spanglish world, you put the E in front of every S.
Right.
So instead of saying school, you say cool. And instead of saying stop sign, you say stop sign. Ah, vamos a stop sign, right? Mm-hmm. And you hear that, and he's the one that taught Pacino to speak. It's that word that you see. What's up, man? Come on, bury those cockroaches. What they ever do for us? Huh? What, you think you're the bad guy? You're not the bad guy. All that stuff, that accent was Steven Bauer. Why I tell you all this? I do a movie here in Miami with a guy named Ariel Ramos. He, unbeknownst to me, when I go to Los Angeles, he did a movie with Steven Bauer in it. We're at a club in Los Angeles. He meets him. I meet Steven Bauer. Steven Bauer could have been the greatest actor of all time. Fortunately, my man had a little drug addiction that changed his whole life, this whole thing. I meet Steven. We hit it off very well. He ends up living with me after I got out of my car and whatever. I had a studio in Studio City and an air mattress for 3 months. And I would recite Scarface in high school. That was like the cool thing to do. Put it probably 13 years after, I'm reciting Scarface lines with Steven Bauer, who is in Scarface. So we're literally getting dressed, going my first time to the Playboy Mansion was it because he was a huge star. Right? Everybody saw Scarface, but he would just live off Scarface. You know, like that was his thing. And we would recite lines, me and him, like I used to do with high school people or whatever. Everybody I've liked or I've looked up to, I've crossed or will cross in my life. So there's no coincidence.
Wow, Coach, that was awesome. I'm fired up. I know my dad's laughing off camera here. He's told me we need to watch Scarface time and time again. And
really?
I think that's what I have to download for the flight home. Cause,
no, you gotta watch it together.
All right, that's the flight.
You have to watch it together in the room. You gotta try to find a way to do it. You gotta, or off the laptop. But you gotta do that.
I'll text you afterward. Yeah, it's. I'm excited to watch now. But I can tell you're just passionate about acting, film, cinema. You have so many hobbies, so many things you care about. How do you spread the wealth, and how do you kind of allocate your time across baseball, content, movies, and
Let me tell you a mistake I made. So, here's a funny story. Steven took me one time to watch. There's this actor named Victor Ben Victor.
Okay.
And he was doing a play in North Hollywood. And I went with Steven there, and Steven was watching the play, and he was crying emotionally in the middle of the play. And I was like, what's this dude crying about? Like, what is this? But he was really feeling that. Like, he was really feeling what he was seeing. And right then and there, I realized, I go, I'm not an actor. What I want out of acting is something different. I'm not an actor. This guy's an actor. This guy cares about the process. He cares about the dialogue. He cares about expressing what the writer cares. I could care less about that. So my thing with Hollywood was what I wanted out of Hollywood was this, that this era has brought now. It's this that this content world has brought now, which is I want to help as many people as I can as possible. So now, what does that mean? So that means if I could help you break in a baseball glove, which is one of my biggest YouTube videos ever,
right.
That's what I want to do. If I want to help you get over a heartbreak, that's what I want to do. If I want to talk about having a miscarriage, like me and my wife did after we had Penelope right in the middle, and how to deal with that as a man, that's what I want to talk about. If I want to talk about how to deal with hair loss, right? Mistakes that I made, things that I did that I shouldn't have done, that's what I want to talk about. So my biggest passion in everything is how can I use my life choice, Argon, to help the choices that I make, the wins, the losses, to help as many people as possible. Because I feel, other than spend the rest of my life with my wife and watch my kids grow up and help them, I could die today and be the happiest guy in the world because I've lived life amazingly. You know, at your age, at 26, is when I slept in a car for 6 months, and that changed the trajectory of everything in my life. So I'm so happy with the way everything turned out that there's no regret on anything. There's just the opportunity of what this era brings us, that even you yourself, you're realizing, man, episode 15, I'm very different than episode 12.
Right.
After with me, you're going to be like, oh my God, I could be even more loose and I could be even more this, because none of this fucking matters. The only thing that matters here is effort and attitude, and that we enjoy this moment. You're like, you know what? I'm going to use this. This is a sign. This dude came and he's on my show. We're talking, but this is a sign that I got to go to 100. If I'm going to go to 100, I'm going to go to 200, you know? So I'm passionate about everything that has to do with helping people, living life, understanding you don't compare yourself to anybody else, and just being happy and understanding that the biggest measurement of happiness that there is the process of achieving a goal. That journey, that's happiness. Because once you get there, then you're going to want to achieve something else. You know, which is difficult. Got to make sure I stay in frame here with the green screen that you put us here.
No worries. I know Mike always talks about it on his show, and I know you guys talked about it this one. You were on YNK and you had him on your show, but it's the Wayne Dyer quote of detaching from the results, enjoying the process, enjoying the journey. How have you? I know you've gone through your hardships. At what point was there a specific point in time where you realized, like, hey, I have to be more present. I have to be in the moment, enjoy the moment, or is this just of your 40 years of living that got you here? What was there? Was there a specific time that you locked in on that philosophy?
I've always had it. Every single time I've always had it. And you mentioned Wayne Dyer. I for some crazy reason I started watching Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, and I was like, man, I like the colors. I saw the colors and she's on these oak trees and stuff, and that kind of got me. And I didn't know who any of these people. Obviously, everybody knows who Oprah is, but I didn't know who Wayne Dyer is. And then he had a book, and I downloaded the audio book, and it was very similar to stuff that I was noticing. You know, he was a teacher for a real long time, and he got pushed out of something. I was like, man, I was a coach. I never liked, like, I like baseball, but I'm not obsessed with it. But I find myself the ability to help coach little kids and be able to get them disciplined. And why is the most disciplined guy the most loved coach, and the kids adore me? So all this stuff I started to put together. And then when I was in the nightclub, I really enjoyed teaching my success to people. I'll never forget my first, so I become like the guy, you know, I'm like the guy with the highest sales thing. Like, I have this huge momentum behind me that I'm kicking ass, because when I got to Vegas, the two guys that were in front of me were huge in the sense you have a lead host. Shout out to my man Dave Roberts, who had been there forever, and you had the director of VIP services, a host that brings now the clients, right? My man, shout out to Greg Costello, and these guys had been there forever, so they were, in a sense, they were set. New club in the Bellagio, they just pretty much met the casino hosts. The casino hosts will bring them their big clients. When you play in Vegas, everything gets comped at a certain thing at that time, right? So I came in and I was like, man, how am I gonna win? And we talked about, it's very interesting, about when I got to Vegas, I was in the best shape of my life. I was shredded. I had a 6-pack, veins in my stomach. I wasn't eating. I looked like a model. But I ran into a guy. So I used to give baseball lessons to a guy. But have you ever heard who Brett Ratner is?
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Brett Ratner directed Rush Hour 1, 2, 3, huge in the Hollywood world. I worked with his little brother, and who was super young. Shout out to his mom, Marcia. So Brett's Cuban. He's Jewish Cuban. And she introduced me to a friend of his, a financial guy named Ron Ray, who had been there, Indian guy who's super successful, lived in a car too when he was there. And he goes to me, he goes, listen, dude, you see this look you got going on, all this flash and everything? He goes, you're gonna hook up with every girl in town. That's easy. But you're never gonna go anywhere. And I was like, why? He goes, because everybody's gonna see you as competition. Right? He goes, if I were you, I would wear a suit and tie, and I would change this whole like tight shirt thing and this whole thing you got going on. And I go to myself, I go, buddy, I haven't eaten bread in like 6 months. I haven't eaten any. I'm like literally everything I'm counting this. I'm gonna hide all this under suit. You gotta be crazy. But I was like, that's interesting. He told me that. We'll never forget. We met at the Lux Hotel in the Venetian, at the Lux Bar in the Venetian. And then I was hooking up with this girl in Los Angeles before I moved after that. And in her bathroom, she had a book of Cuba. I don't know why she had this book, but it was a history of Cuba, and it was all about Castro and Che Guevara stuff, two characters that we completely fucking hate. But when I saw that, I started looking at the pages of the book, and I noticed that Castro, while playing golf, was dressed in his army fatigues. And I go, that's interesting. Why would this dude play golf in army fatigues? And to myself, I came up with, because Castro wanted to let you know that at any moment he would go to war at any time. So he could be playing golf, and the minute something looked crazy, he's already dressed, ready to go. So I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to listen to this guy's thing. And I went to the Boulevard Mall there. Shout out to my man Dove, who owns Sushi there in Sunset Plaza. And he got me 2 suits, or like $50 suits. And I got them so tailored to my body. It looked like I was a model. And about one Tom Ford tie. And about these $50 shoes, all 50-50 thing at the Boulevard Mall there. And I made a goal. I go, I'm going to wear a suit and tie every single day. Now, Hyde is a spot that sits in the fountains of the Bellagio, but it was open as a lounge every day. So it'd be a nightclub. Tuesday was industry night, so Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Those 3 nights was a nightclub after 10 o'clock. Before was a lounge. So I made a goal that every single day I was going to wear a suit and tie. Not a suit with it open, or a suit and tie every single day for a year. Positive momentum took me to a year and a half. I couldn't stop. And I went to Hyde every single day for a year and a half. And that's how I became the most popular person that didn't own a Las Vegas nightclub. To the point that I used to take, did you go to private school?
I did not, no.
So I went to public school here in Miami. And I used to take the yellow bus, even my senior year in high school, which is an L. When you come from like middle class kind of thing, it's an L to take. You have a car in high school?
I did. My parents blessed me with a car.
Yeah, you're lucky. So I did it. So I took the yellow bus, and my senior, my mom took, which is the most embarrassing thing in the world, right? Not compared to not having water and stuff like that. But we're talking about American problems. Yeah. And I had at a time the highest theoretical player in Vegas. You know what theoretical play is?
I don't think so.
You know what theoretical play is?
No.
Okay. You're a gambler? You ever gamble?
No.
You gamble?
I've played, but not.
What do you play?
I've played blackjack and roulette.
Okay. Let's talk roulette.
All right.
So this dude, my man from Peru who owns casinos in Isla del Sur, he's the highest theoretical player in Vegas. So Vegas rates you not on how much money you have, but theoretical play. So theoretical play is the amount you play. Okay? The amount you play, so the average hand,
Right.
times how long you sit at the table.
Okay.
So the higher you play and the higher you sit there is how Vegas rewards you. They give you your comps and they rate you as a player. So I have number 1. So that means everywhere we go, free tickets, everything's comped by MGM. I got to see Manny Pacquiao fights. I got to see all of Mayweather fights, Mayweather, Canelo also. If I'm sitting in the front there, whatever. This dude's average hand at roulette was 335,000 a spin.
Oh my goodness.
335,000 a spin, and that's where I'm at. So when these people win, right? Because they all have lines of credit. When they win, you have chips here, and you for hanging out with me, Arjun. I'm here. I just won 330,000. What's them to give 2 chips of 10 G's to you there?
Right.
That's Vegas.
So why'd you leave? Why'd you come to Miami?
Because the man upstairs, like I said in the beginning, the man upstairs started talking to me. And there was a lady talking about faith and talking about stuff. There's a lady by the name of Angelica Garcia, Mexican lady, who was a reborn Christian, very, very religious. And she goes to me, listen, Cubanito, which is Cuban dude, Spanish. You think you're gonna be here in Vegas, and I was in heaven. She goes, you're gonna end up working with kids. I go, Angelica, you have to be crazy. If I'm ever, I literally told her this, if I'm ever gonna leave Vegas, you have to be crazy. I am never leaving this ever, 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 ever. But the reason why I left is because I felt the man upstairs talking to me, telling me the legend's not gonna die in a Las Vegas nightclub. There's more you gotta do. There's more you can do. And I had literally everything I wanted. I had achieved already. Flying private to places. I spent times in Europe, opening clubs, giving people, being a consultant on clubs in Ibiza, in Greece, in Montenegro, just everywhere, man. And I'm lucky I don't drink or I've never done drugs before. So I'm super present, super stuff. But the biggest sign of them all was meeting my wife. And when I saw her, and I felt this, I go, oh, this is something different. And that's why I came back here to Miami, man.
Wow. And then how'd you and your wife meet? Was that while you were in Vegas, or was that after you listened to the big man upstairs and came down to Miami?
No, we met. We went to high school together.
Oh, wow.
I saw her one time, and she kind of smiled at me. But since I had nothing going on, I go, there's no way I got a shot with this chick.
You were taking the yellow bus, so.
Yeah, exactly. But when you got a 10 ain't hooking up with a yellow bus unless you have like so much swag and so much freedom. I had none of that, man. I didn't have any freedom, and I could barely have swag and have cool clothes. My dad had me. I was doing baseball 24/7, so I saw her there, and I was like, ah. But then I had some success there, and an interesting thing happened to me in Los Angeles where I gained national attention, and my Facebook just blew up incredibly, and her face popped up. Facebook used to have a feature of people you should know,
Right.
and I saw her. We're the same age. I go, wow, this girl really, really held up. She's gorgeous, and we're the same age. Usually that doesn't happen. So I hit her up. We went on a date. Best first date of my life. I felt like I was talking to her. I felt like that was just like, she's like my life. When I was sitting there with this woman, I felt like this is like my life. Best first date ever. We were super affectionate. Wasn't a sexual thing. It was just like a familiarity thing. It was just crazy, man. I did that. I was living in Los Angeles. I go, there's no way I'm going to move to Miami for her. It's before the Vegas thing. And I kept in touch with her. She goes, I'm not going to settle down with a Vegas guy. She was living her life. So she left with an LA guy. And I kept in touch with everybody. I was super friendly. I go, listen, if you're ever in Vegas, I'll take care of you, whatever. And 4 years after that, she reached out to me to throw her best friend's bachelorette party at Hyatt in the Bellagio. And I did it, and the rest is history, man.
This is, I mean, the impetus for a reason for everything. Everything happens for a reason. Even if that's all that your amazing life amounts to be, the fact that you had to go through all those jumps and loops to be at the Hyde, just to meet your wife and have your beautiful kids.
Yes, sir.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I guess, yeah, just unbelievable. So I want to know more about that first date that was magical. I'm single. I'm meeting people, trying to figure out my life. What was that amazing first date like?
Well, first of all, my thing, and my wife always gives me a hard time, because my thing was women. So I used women to position myself probably the wrong way, because it was almost like that's the only superpower I felt I had, right? I felt I had looks a certain way, I could carry myself away. I really didn't care about women, and women find that incredibly attractive when you do that, you know? There was this thing with my wife that when you get a little older, almost to your age already, you really realize, you have your heart broken and you understand, you really realize how to navigate through women. And I hadn't in Los Angeles. I had started to date a couple, hang out with a couple famous women, and in Vegas that really took it to a next level because I was almost like a famous person because I had so much access and I had everything and I had all the toys to play with that people who were famous had. So you learn at the beginning, you're impressed, like, oh look, this is this, but at some point she's the same person like all of us.
Right.
And with my wife, she's Cuban. I never wanted to be with a Cuban. I never wanted to be with a Cuban because I felt like they knew the playbook. And I always wanted to be with like an American girl because I wanted to be like Ricky Ricardo and have a white chick that I conquer America through the girl. But it was different. And what I knew was, I knew I had somebody that I was to me, because the thing to find somebody, Argan, is it has to be with what works for you. Because I went 1,000% with the hottest girl I can find that then had these and these qualities that I saw in it. Some people that I know settled with twos and they cheat on them all the time and the two deals with it. That's the situation, that's their situation. But I felt, oh man, I don't want to get divorced.
Right.
I don't want to have my kids raised by some other dude. I don't want this thing. If I'm going to go all in, and I got lucky, man. I got married at 37, which is a pretty good age after living Miami, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. That's a great age to settle down with somebody, So it was just a feeling of familiarity, and she just did it for me in everything that I needed. Now, I had on my show Patrick Bet-David. You know who that is?
I love Patrick, yeah.
So Patrick, he came and he got his chick, because that dude's like a brain, and there's this book that asked I don't know, it's like 100 questions or 1,000 questions, but he asked her, he literally pre-qualified every single one of his girls or his chick and his wife. Now he pre-qualified, like, during this age we're gonna have kids, and like he's really did that way, But I've never operated that way. I've operated more of universe, life is what it is, I'm gonna go with it. Not that guy. That guy's operating, even though he follows now, he was atheist for a while, but he's so calculative, so smart, and like a numbers ace, so I'm not that smart, I'm not that calculative, I just follow the flow of things and whatever. But he asked the right, like, there's we talked about, is a huge thing on that, which I would recommend that route for everybody. Don't do what I did. So I went on a gut instinct, and it turned out for me phenomenally. And I haven't even the Coach HP version of me. The only regret I have in my life is that I wish my wife would have met me during the Vegas years, because we would have enjoyed that tremendously. The Coach HP years now with the show, and now with kids, there's a lot of challenges that come with that I didn't have before, that I'm right there. There's me blowing up, and I'm like right here on it. And there's a lot of tough things I had to do. And we talked about doing podcasts and going. I had a viral clip that did very well because my wife had a C-section. Penelope was born, and a week after I went to Oregon State to speak to the national champs.
Right.
A lot of people don't do that for free. A lot of people don't do that. I did it because I felt like this is my thing, and that has put me in a place where it has separated me, I feel, from everybody else.
You mentioned the hardships and struggles that have come with Coach HP's show. You've had some unbelievable guests on, from Patrick has mentioned to Erica from Barstool, and even 2024 presidential candidate Mayor Suarez.
Yes.
I know you're a big networking guy. How do you maintain this massive Rolodex of individuals that you've stayed close with over the years? How are you able to get connected with these folks that you don't know in the first place and maintain those relationships in this crazy world of constant connectivity?
Because I understand what I think people need. I'll give you a perfect. This is an awesome one that I thought of this. You know who Eric Decker is? Arac?
I do, yeah.
Okay. I'm here and I'm interviewing. I go to the Jake Paul fight, and Pops, there's so many stories that lead to this man that is crazy. One of the biggest guys on ESPN. I have to go back. I become the first influencer to sign with Rawlings. So I signed with Rawlings. I convinced Rawlings to let me go to New York and interview the All-Stars, the Gold Glove Award winners. So I'm interviewing everybody there, and I interview this big guy at ESPN. And he goes, dude, I love what you did, man. I would love to talk to you about content and social media and stuff like that. You can help me out. I go, absolutely. So we meet in Miami. And when we meet in Miami, I come and we have breakfast together, and I tell him everything. I lay out everything, blah blah. And in front of me, he goes, "How about I get you to do what you did for Rawlings for ESPN at the winter meetings?" I was like, "Oh my God, that's it. I'm in." He goes, "Let me show you how I roll." Puts up his cell phone and calls the general manager of ESPN. And in my brain, outside, I'm sitting like this. And in my head, I'm like, "Please pick up the phone. Please pick up the phone." Because I know how this works. Everybody's like, "Yeah." And then they don't do anything. The guy didn't pick up the phone. Long story short, that guy didn't do anything. Just bullshitted me. Whatever, nothing, right? But there was something positive out of that. And the positive thing was that he said I could do it. So then I called my boy who had trained his kid, right? Because everything leads to helping and giving. That I was training his kid, and he was the president of the Orange Bowl committee. And I go to my man Jose. I go, "Listen, dude, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to give me access so I could interview people at the Orange Bowl." It was Virginia Tech versus Florida, bro. And I interviewed two celebrities or celebrity athletes from their side. I interviewed Coach Steve Spurrier, not professional. I just went and hunted people down and I asked them stuff. And then I interviewed Tiki Barber.
Wow.
Okay, and I interviewed both with her. And then I'm walking there, and then who's walking by when I see there? Dan fucking Marino, bro.
Wow.
And for us Cubans, Dan Marino, bro, here in Miami, that's the guy. And I pulled up there on Dan, and I go, "Hey, Dan, let me ask you a question real quick, man, for Capital One here, for the Orange Bowl, whatever." And I confuse him, and I asked him a question about his dad and stuff first. So I interviewed Dan Marino, right? And then I said to myself, "Oh, I can do anybody. I can do anybody." And I have no journalistic background, but my intention, my vibe were so good. And I talked to Dan about his dad, and he's like, "Man, my dad, man, he's no longer with us, but he just taught me this, and that." And I was like, I got it, right? So we put all this together, and I'm going to places. I become obsessed with going to places and interview people, and then I get Jake Paul versus Anderson Gibb, right here in Miami. And I go, "Oh, there's Logan Paul. I'm gonna interview Logan Paul." So right before I interview Logan Paul, is this skinny white dude that comes in with a guy with a DAZN jacket, and he's sitting here, and he gets Logan Paul in front of me. He starts interviewing in front of me, and I'm with my recorder camera, and I'm watching him, and I'm recording, and I'm watching him talk to Logan Paul. He's like, "Yeah, Logan, you don't know me, man. I'm Eric. I used to do this, and that, and I did this YouTube, that YouTube, whatever." And then Logan actually literally stopped and go, "Okay, I think I've heard of you, man. Did you do this and that?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, let me see your stuff," or whatever. And I was watching him, but I felt like he made Logan wait. In that crazy thing, if I'm going to stop and go, "Oh my God, man, I'm a fan of your show, man. I would listen." You got to have everything like this. I'm not going to make you pull out your phone to go to notes. And I felt he did that. And I was like, "Oh, man, you had him, whatever." So Logan leaves. I grab Eric after, and I go, "Man, let me tell you something, dude. I know that wasn't the outcome you wanted, but you're going to be very successful in this. Keep doing what you're doing. I would do this differently. Have your information already." I had not seen his content, I hadn't seen anything of his thing, nothing, right? So I told him that. I had him on my show. At the time, this dude had 1,700 subscribers. 1,700 subscribers. At the time I have him on my show, he had gone up to maybe 10,000 or maybe 20,000, whatever. I start seeing his stuff. The kid's a genius. He does this whole thing where he buys Logan Paul's couch that he was selling, this whole blah, 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 blah. Long story short, Eric Decker right now has 13 million. 13 million on YouTube, like this with Mr. Beast. So my networking has been, how can I help you with what I know? And some people are super cool about it. Some people are not. But I reach out to everybody and I try to help connect dots as best as possible. If I knew somebody at the Four Seasons, I'd be like, "Bro, you got to check out this."
Right.
If I know somebody, if you're going to go to an Orioles game, I go, "Bro, let me reach out to Adley so you can say what's up to him, man." You know who Adley Rushman is?
Yeah.
Right? When I spoke at Oregon State, I don't know if you saw that on one of my clips, He's like, I didn't know who he was, but he's right there, and he raised his hand. Coach mindset, coach this, that. It was Ali Rushman. See what I'm saying? When I interviewed Jackson Holiday, you know who that is, right? The 2 number 1 overall picks of the last of 2019 and 2022. I didn't know who Jackson was. I didn't know he was. First of all, I didn't know he was Matt's son, and number 2, he didn't have the hype that all these other people had. But I don't go for the hype. It's very easy to everybody allowed to love Logan Paul. Well, what if you love Logan Paul when he's Ohio Logan Paul?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Disney
So
Channel.
my biggest thing was and is that. All right, I got 5 more minutes, dude, before I got to take off. So
All right, I got some rapid fire for
let's
you.
do it.
Then. So we talked off camera about a couple of the guests you have coming on. We don't have to dive into that. Who is your dream guest on your show? I'm in the same boat. I love connecting people. I love getting people together. I don't know. I doubt my network can ever help you do that. But
It will, but you never know.
You never know.
You never know. You never know.
So who's a dream guest of yours that we can help get on the Coach HP show?
There isn't anybody. It's just everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody that I can help, anybody that can do stuff, everybody eventually that I like. Look, Gary Vee is.
I love Gary Vee.
Gary's a guy
He's
who
on your show, right?
I was starting my content because here's another one that you think you can't make this stuff up, man. I get Gary, I watch him, I watch a dude interview Tony Robbins. And I go, Tony Robbins is wearing a suit. Here's a dude dressed casually. He's interrupting Tony Robbins all the time. Tony Robbins is dealing with it. Who's this guy? I become obsessed with his content. I start doing content because of Gary. Gary's like, you gotta document. Okay, we gotta document. So I start documenting. I start doing the stuff. I start working with, Felix Hernandez. Remember Felix Hernandez? King Felix for the Mariners.
Oh, yeah,
the pitcher.
yeah, of course.
I start working with his son, ESPN. I train a kid that his dad's the VP of ESPN. He's like, dude, I want you to share what you're helping my son on a show. I have him on. I grab the book, Crush It, kind of like to help. Let's see if I can get Gary's attention, whatever. I do the book, Crush It. Nothing. He doesn't even pay attention to it. He could care less, whatever. When I'm at the Gold Glove Awards, right before, there's a kid following me. And when he follows me, he goes, dude, I work for Vayner. I love what you're doing. I used to play soccer before, et cetera, et cetera. I would love to have you on my podcast. When I went and signed with New Balance, and I went to New Balance, I go fuck it, I'll do your show after. I went and did his show. And he goes, dude, you should connect with this guy. I connect with this guy. Happens to be Little Lou, my man Little Lou Geno. And we started talking baseball. This was the Nationals versus the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Great series.
And he was a huge Astros guy. And we're like, oh, man, I think you guys can pull it off. You can pull off the Nationals. One, see how everything ties together, and we didn't know. And he comes, and after, he goes, I go, dude, can I help you in anything baseball? I say, like, my brother, his stepbrother, my brother, is huge into baseball. My dad is a huge baseball guy, and ironically, I'm half Dominican. He doesn't even look it, but his dad's Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh my God, let's go. So I help him out. We have dinner that day, and the dad goes to me after. I'm actually interviewing Ozzie Smith, and he sends me this long text, and he goes, dude, I would love to have you come talk to these kids in New Jersey, blah, 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 blah. I go, done. And I went there, and I got my happy, positive self. I fell asleep at the Plaza Hotel at 3 in the morning. At 7 o'clock, I was taking the Hudson Ferry to Jersey. We drove to wherever it took me, and I took for 3 hours. I spoke there, and I helped kids for free. And at the end, Lou Geno Sr., Big Lou, goes to me. Man, I can't repay you for what you've done, but let me tell you what I can do for you. I'm best friends with Gary Vaynerchuk. How crazy is that? I've known him since the wine days, since Wine Library, since before that. I'm in the wine business. I'm going to get you a meeting with Gary. And I go to him like this. I go, the only way I'm meeting with Gary, Big Lou, is if you come with me. So that was a year after that, February of 2020. We went, February 21st, the exact same day that I was on ESPN 2 years ago with the book, right? Can't make this stuff up. I'm there in his office, and at the end, Gary goes to me. He goes, whoa, wait a minute. Me and you got to have dinner. And after that, COVID hit. What do you do? What do you do when COVID hits? The world stops. And the 3 biggest people that you have interviews with, stuff with, to maybe some, it all gets frozen. You create the most positive show on the internet called the Coach HP Show, and you keep attacking. Because when stuff gets rough, there's only one thing to do. You grab the knife, you put it in your mouth, you don't look to the left, you don't look to the right, you look straight, and you attack, bro.
I love it.
And that's what I did. One more question. Come on, last question.
Coach, I know you're a big golfer. I'd love to know your dream course, and then round us out with any last-minute advice you have for the audience here.
So dream course. So I've already played my dream course with the dream person. First person I ever played golf was a shout out to my man Tyler Shook. Man, Tyler Shook was a beast, dude. He's a guy who went in Arkansas. Was a huge golfer. Because of his golf skills, he became boys with a guy by the name of Michael Jordan. And then Michael Jordan used to have the Shadow Creek Invitational in Shadow Creek in Vegas. And the first time I ever played golf, I didn't actually play, but I was part of the foursome in the golf cart following them, was with Michael Jordan and Tyler. And right then and there, everything I could ever want was that. So Shadow Creek for me is the best. I play golf in my head every day. I don't go out a lot. I don't do a lot of stuff with it because I don't. But I love golf and I love everything about it. The best advice I could give anybody is this: the two things you can control forever, is your effort and your attitude. Okay, effort and attitude, and try your best to control expectations. The only thing I could have done when I met Gary was I'm gonna give my best effort and attitude. Mistake I made is the minute I meet these people and they're so welcoming and they're so nice, I'm like, I hit, that's it. But I don't control that, right? So I believe that. Like I met with Erica, and I met with Erica, and she's like, look, I want to introduce you to Dave, and then nothing happens because nothing's supposed to happen because something huge is coming in the wind of this, right? And a lot of people, I think they feel discouraged because like, oh, Arjun is the guy, man. That's my guy. And the minute Arjun gets busy because he doesn't do it for me because it's not supposed to be that way, then I stop doing what got me to the dance, right? So if you keep doing what gets you to the dance at your own pace, you don't need to imitate anybody. You keep at your own pace, great things will happen that are supposed to happen, right? Does that make sense? I had a guy, I was on a big podcast with guys that then blew up. They signed with Nelk after they did amazing. And one of the guys goes, dude, we could get you verified for $10,500. Imagine a pay to get verified for $10,500. I was like, oh my God. You think about it, like, wow, I wasn't verified at the time, whatever. But then I reach out to a friend of mine who's an agent, baseball. I go, dude, how do you get verified? Because yeah, you gotta have 3 articles about you. And for $50, this lady will do it. I go, it ain't guaranteed, but they'll do it. Boom, it happened. And for $50, there you go. So slow down. Don't imitate yourself to anybody. You know, I wish there's great things of having a dad like this. Like I sit there and record there. My dad would never do that, right? But there's benefits and there's not so good benefits. You know. Yeah. What's his benefits or what's contradiction? What is an anti-benefit?
Pros and cons?
Pros and cons. There we go, man. Pros and cons, dude. So,
Coach.
At Coach HP on all social handles, man. If you see this out there, you're a fan of this dude, reach out. Any questions, any help I could be, I will let you know. I want to encourage you to keep going, dude. You have such good things that help to do what you do. You don't have an ego. You're you. You're very, you remind me a lot of a guy who had on my show, you know who Anthony Pompliano is? Pomp?
I love Pomp.
The Pomp Man. You have a vibe of the Pomp Man, you know, of that kind of thing. So, sky's the limit, dude.
I appreciate you, Coach. It was great to meet you, and looking forward to many more.
My man, let's do it.
Let's get it, guys.
Hey, can I get one of you guys point? That was cool. I got that. One last one. You guys point towards the camera.